Hello.
I hope you are doing well, and I hope you are dealing positively with this difficult period. Concerning our presentation, it is divided into two parts. The first one is about the community language learning, and the second is about total physical response. Since we are working on both methods, into two parts. The presenters are myself, Yusuf Rais, Mohammed Zaqim, and Mohammed Saleh. We will be presenting in this order, so let's get started. This is the outline of our presentation. We will first see the definition of each method, and we will start, of course, with community language learning. Then we will see its principles, and after that we will move to its advantages and disadvantages. Then the implications of this method, and after that we will see a workshop, how the community language learning works, and finally we will have an exercise to see the extent to which we understand this method. So the community language learning, it is an approach in which students work together to develop all aspects of a language they would like to learn. The teacher acts as a counselor, and the learners act as collaborators, as clients. And please, here I want your attention to be on. The teacher is a counselor versus student as a client. So we can confidently say that the main mark and the main contribution of this approach to the field of language teaching is this metaphor of teacher counselor versus student as a client. The CLL, or the Community Language Learning Method, was developed by Charles A. Curran, a professor of psychology at Loyola University in Chicago. This is in 1970. The community language learning was primarily designed for monolingual classes, where the teacher counselor could speak the Ilwan of his learners. He can speak the language of the students, their mother tongue. The intention behind this was that it would integrate translation, so that the students would disassociate language learning with risk-taking. It is a method English for communication, language for communication, whatever. Not necessarily English, for communication as an extremely learner-focused method. So when the teacher understands students' L1, students are more likely open to learn that new language. This, one way or another, helps them get over the anxiety caused by being exposed to an environment. And we all know how uncomfortable that is for a number of students, the fear that learning or starting to learn a new language causes to students. Well, they say others may laugh at me, or I may look stupid. That's why we need teacher speaks the students L1. He can help them overcome this fear. The teacher should be a skillful understander of the struggles students face as they try to internalize a new language. Again, the stress here is on the idea of the teacher as a counselor. The teacher the community language learning, we will move to see its principles, the principles of the community language learning. So we have the first is building a good relationship between the teacher and the students. A strong relationship between students and their teacher is of paramount importance in the community language learning. This can be, it can be created by simple things like greeting. When you get into your classroom, you greet your students, and more importantly, mutual understanding between the teacher and students. The second one is here we have emphasis is on communication. More importance is given to communication than any other language skill in this method, primarily because it uses a lot of conversations. The third here is student-to-student interaction. Students interact with one another in group conversations, and the teacher goes behind them to reduce that negative effect over his students. I mean, to minimize the effect of his presence. The fourth, we have the use of translation from L1 to the target language. In the CLL, translation is used a lot from students L1 to the target language. This is why, again, it is a plus if the teacher speaks the L1 of his students to help them express their ideas. We have the fifth is students work in groups. This way, students, as we said, they feel a sense of belonging to a community. The fact that leads to better learning outcomes. The sixth, we have students participate in their own learning. In the CLL, students in this method decide on the exact aspects of the language they want to learn. For example, in the human-computer activity, and which we are going to see afterwards, students choose the pronunciation of the word they want to practice.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Zeki. I belong to the group of Mohammed Saleh and Yusuf Rais. We are working on community language learning and total physical response. And in my part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about advantages and disadvantages of both community language learning and total physical response. I will start with advantages of community language learning. The first advantage of CLL, it stands for community language learning. Community language learning works well with lower level students, so it is of much help for students who are struggling in spoken language. It can help them improve their speaking skills and become fluent. Second advantage, it lowers students' anxiety, and it's a well-known fact that all students who learn a second or foreign language go through anxiety. This method reduces students' anxiety and lowers affective filters so that students learn at ease. Number three, it creates warm and trusting relationship between teacher and learners because community language learning makes the class become a real community, not just when using CLL, but all of the time. Students become much more aware of their peers and their strengths and weaknesses and want to work as a team thanks to community language learning method. Counselor allows the learners to determine the type of conversation. So students here have the right to make choice. It also trains students to become independent because community language learning offers learners autonomy. So after seeing advantages of community language learning, we are going to know disadvantages of community language learning because no method or approach is drawback free. The first disadvantage of this method is some students find it difficult to speak on the tape because some students are scared to speak on the tape for fear of being judged or thought stupid. So not all students speak comfortable on the tape, which is an issue. Number two, the teacher might neglect the need for guidance. And as we know, guidance plays an important role in classroom management. It helps students to pay attention and influences their behavior as well. Translation is a complex and difficult task because the teacher should be very fluent in the source and the target language in order to use community language learning to teach. So it's very difficult to be fluent in two languages. It's not an easy task. Okay. The last disadvantage in our presentation is it is time consuming. So community language learning requires a lot of time to carry out. So it might not work in some contexts. This is all about advantages and disadvantages of community language learning.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Muhammad Saleh, and now we're going to take a look at the implications of community language learning method. Well, in community language learning method, students are seen as whole persons. Community language learning, or CLL, allows teachers to understand the struggle students face as they try to learn the target language. So the teachers consider not only their students' intellect, but also they try to understand um, their feelings, physical reactions, and also their desire to learn. Sorry. So the teacher here sees his or her students as whole persons. Well, a classroom in which CLL is adapted, um, the lesson starts with the establishment of security. It is believed that students learn best when they feel secure. And in order to create this environment of security, students are gathered and sit in a circle in order to create a community atmosphere. Here, students have to feel secure and also to create a sense of belonging, trying with to come up with their ideas using, of course, L1. or their mother tongue. Teacher can provide them with a topic asking them to visualize a situation. And if a student or a learner wanted to ask a question or say something about the topic, he or she can say it using his or her mother tongue, and then the teacher translates it into the target language while the others watch and observe. And here the learner, he has to repeat the teacher's translation. And if he or she makes or commits a mistake, the teacher repeats it to correct the mistake. He tried to repeat what the student say or what the student says in order to correct his mistake in a non-threatening manner. The second step is practice. Student, they have to practice what they have just learned, the expression, the words they want to learn, because according to CLL, community language learning, it is the student it is the students who decide what they want to learn, not the teacher. So here they practice those expressions or words or dialogue or whatever they want to learn, and then the teacher has to write them on the board in order to allow students um, connect the spoken form with the written form. And at the end of the session, students reflect on what they learned and experienced and also felt during that lesson. The teacher then listened, and he or she tried to show them that he or she understand what they felt. This allows students to be
deals with the total physical response. And this is the outline of this part. We will have the definition, principles, advantages, disadvantages, implications, workshop, and finally an exercise. That's our knowledge of this method. So the definition of total physical response, TPR. Total physical response is a language teaching method built around the coordination of speech and action. Here we have speech and action. It attempts to teach language through physical motor activity. This means that the TPR attempts to teach language through physical activities, through doing. Students have to perform, they have to do the action in order to learn. Total physical response, or TPR, was created by the American psychologist Dr. James Asher and is based on the experience of how humans learn their first language. I mean, you see, when children learn their mother tongue, their parents and the ones who take care of them are physically involved in imparting the language. They demonstrate, they instruct, and the child responds positively and kindly to those demonstrations. I mean, no one expects from the child to speak. All they want from him is to listen and understand. So parents have language body conversations with the child, and the child responds physically to it. For example, look at mommy, give me the ball, do this, say that, do that. So here we have a lot of comments. So the TPR attempts to mirror exactly this effect in language classrooms. The result is that we acquire our mother tongue rather than learn it, as we do additional languages. Therefore, the idea of TPR in a nutshell is to create a neutral link between speech and action. That is to say, to make learning more associated with action. It's like more learning by doing. TPR is linked to the traced theory of memory in psychology, which holds that the more often, the more intensively a memory connection is traced, the stronger the memory association will be, and more likely it will be recalled. So research has proved that we learn more, we remember what we learned more if it is associated with the principle of total physical response after we've seen its definition. So the first principle is taking listening as the leading activity in the classroom. So listening in TPR is of paramount importance because once students listen, they have to perform. Therefore, they have to listen very carefully in order to understand what they have to do. If they have done much preparation work, we should allow students to take part in the activities. That is, TPR requires like more preparation from both sides, students and teachers alike, since it involves acting. Students should improve their comprehension ability through the body's response to language. Here we have teaching should pay more attention to meaning rather than form, so that students can reduce the tension. Emphasis is on meaning rather than form, since students are required to perform the action. That's why more importance is given to communication. And 50 it helps to cultivate students' real communicative competence. After using TPR teaching method, students can maintain long-term clear memory after a period of time. It plays a significant role in primary learners' long-term memory. It has a higher recall rate. TPR teaching method can make learners recall more often after gaining the knowledge. So the TPR strengthens memory.
Hello, again, it's me, Mohammed Zeki. This time I'm going to explain advantages and disadvantages of total physical response method. I'm going to start with the advantages and then I'm going to move to disadvantages. So the advantages. Now, the first or some of the advantages of this method are total physical response or TPR does not require a great deal of preparation. As long as the teacher knows what to practice, he or she only needs to rehearse it beforehand, and that's it. So it will not take a lot of time to get ready vis-a-vis other methods like community language learning. It's time consuming, but TPR or total physical response is not time consuming, which is a good point. Second, it is fun, so the teacher can give funny comments and activities that will help students to find learning interesting. This facilitates the learning process for the learners. It's memorable. It helps students to remember phrases or words easily, which is a good thing. It is a good tool for building vocabulary. It is good for kinesthetic learners who learn through touching and moving. And so it targets this kind of or this style of learning. So it helps them a great deal to learn. It helps learners achieve fluency faster. So students who learn through TPR or total physical response can achieve fluency faster vis-a-vis other students who are learning through other methods. It is very effective with teenagers and young learners. So teenagers and young learners finds this method interesting and effective for them. Now we are going to talk about disadvantages of this method. And total physical response method is most useful only for beginners. So we cannot use it with advanced level students. No. So it's not acceptable for all levels. We can use it with them, but it is most useful only for beginners. It can be a major challenge for shy students. So there are some students who try to avoid zany movements. And it doesn't work with these kind of students, which is an issue. It is not a very creative method, so it depends on mechanical drills and so on. Creativity is limited here. It is easy to overuse and the students will get bored. So when students get bored, learning will stop. It is limited. So as I aforementioned, it cannot use to teach uh, other language skills. It is limited to vocabulary and phrases, so we cannot use it to teach, for example, writing and so on. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of total physical response method, and thank you for your attention.
Hello everybody, this is Mohammed Zaleh from Group 1 working on total physical response and community language learning methods with my colleagues Mohammed Zakim and Yusuf Rais. On this presentation I'm going to be talking about the implications of these two methods, starting with total physical response. But before we jump to that, I want you to ask yourselves these two questions. Do you think total physical response is the best method for language learning? And to what extent can we apply this method? In other words, what is its limitations? Okay, let's get started. Take a look at this picture. What do you see? Yes, a teacher talking to her student. And as you see there, she is saying, say it. She is trying to make him speak. And this is wrong in total physical response. Why? Because student is not forced to talk. Total physical response applies the process of how first language is acquired. Thus, students' understanding of the target language should be developed before speaking. And to apply TPR in your class, don't expect from your students to speak at the very beginning, from day one. There's actually a key principle in total physical response that we can apply in our classroom, which is imperative. Imperative is a powerful linguistic device through which teachers um, direct their students' behavior. So here's an example. Students can learn through observing actions as well as by performing the actions themselves. So before teacher gives certain comments, their students or his students or her students can learn just through observing him doing the actions, and then they can perform the actions he did. One of the best activities to put TPR in practice is a very funny game, which is Simon Says. Simon Says in this activity or this game, teacher gives comments at Simon and students listen and do the actions. Here are some examples. For example, Simon says clap hands, students have to clap their hands. Simon says jump, students have to jump. Simon says stand up, and so on and so forth. So here students developing their listening skills as well as they grasp the meaning through what they do, those actions, and learning it takes place actually. But before you do this activity with your students, there are certain steps that you should follow. Sorry. First and foremost, you have to prepare vocabulary you will use. Then, modeling. When you model, it doesn't mean you explain the vocabulary. Rather, you just show them how to do it. It's about showing, not explaining. So you show them the movement and you say the vocab. Once you do that, you have to make sure to repeat it as much as you can so that your students understand what you are doing. And once you do that, you have to do it in as a whole class. You do it all together, and this helps students actually and helps everyone to get involved in the process of learning. And the last thing is to write it down on the board. Why? This allows students and help them to connect the spoken form with the written form. Coming back to the questions, did you answer those questions? Okay, the first question, do you think TPR is the best method for language learning? Remember, all methods have their black and white sides. Thus, there is no best method. But the best teaching method is the one that your students respond to. And good teachers are those teachers who adjust methods and their styles in order to make effective learning. Coming back to the second question, to what extent can we apply it? As every methods, they have their limitations. Total physical response also has its limitations. It is usually used with beginners and children, and it lost its uniqueness as children advanced in their competence. This is all I have. Thank you so much.